Vanakkam Dohadeva and everyone. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vindvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And we'll share the screen here. And we have October 9th in Singapore. Very nice. Okay, so let's take a look here. First topic. New questions. So, this is a story that relates to the idea of inherent states of higher consciousness. It's an idea that came up in a discussion that took place on my recent September trip. And you'll remember Teyata Fisher, some of you from a while ago. She's known for telling American Indian stories, performed as a representative of American Indians at state dinners before President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the 1930s. The monks watched her movie, Teyata, and one statement that impressed me was that in speaking of religion, she said that standing by a beautiful mountain lake was her cathedral. Maybe you'll remember that. It made me ponder a quality of human consciousness. So take a cow. We have cows. If a cow stands next to a water trough in a pasture or next to a beautiful mountain lake, is there a difference? No. To the cow, water is water. It takes a human consciousness for the lake to transport you into a religious feeling. So it's not inherent in the lake that it's sacred, that it's a cathedral. It's inherent in human consciousness to perceive it that way. So we can explain the Hindu approach to meditation as acquiring the ability to move to that same state of consciousness without needing an external lake. So you look at a beautiful mountain lake and you have this feeling of sacredness. You don't need the lake to experience the feeling of sacredness. It's in you. So meditation is learning how to find it without an external stimulus. And we have a word for that. Anif. The sublime vibration of a place or platform of worship, an altar outside or inside. Finding the place within yourself that is absolutely quiet. In Anif, we are deep enough within that all of the forces of the mind can be seen, and we are like the hummingbird, totally quiet. And the last one, from Anif, we look out and see the forces equalizing themselves. So that's a very interesting idea, all of that the sacredness is actually within us. It's not in the lake, but the lake, the view of the lake is catalyzing us to experience our inherent sacredness. And meditation is just taking away the external stimulus. The next one is an interesting question. My 9-year-old daughter has the following questions. How do we realize the soul? I understand that I am the soul, but I'm not able to grasp it or realize it. So based on what we just said, we have an answer. There's many answers. Sensing something sacred is one approach. If when you walk into the temple and you have a sense that it is a sacred place and different from, say, a grocery store, to do that means you are in your soul. You wouldn't experience it otherwise. Only the soul can perceive sacredness. Someone not aware of the soul would not feel the sacredness in a temple, or in the case of the Indian Theata, the sacredness in a beautiful mountain lake. So that's a very simple answer. You go to the temple, if the shrine feels sacred, that means you're in your soul. And our 9-year-old asks another question: how do we realize God? That one's more complex. So I took a pre-existing answer, 2004 Publisher's Desk. As the answer, I want to see God. Some pertinent suggestions to sincere seekers on where and how to look for divinity. So this one's 18 years old. This Publisher's Desk was written to show Hindus who are interested in the personal experience of God that it can be done in a diversity of ways. In other words, there's not just one approach. This is the only way you can experience God. You got to do this, this, and this, and this, and you'll experience God. Now we have a multiplicity of approaches, all of them valid. The focus of many religions is on helping those who do not believe in God to believe in God. For them, belief in God is the beginning and the end of the process. Once you believe in God, there is nothing more to do. However, in Hinduism, belief is only the first step. Hindus want to move beyond just believing in God to experiencing God for themselves. Very good point. So not all religions are trying to have you experience God. They just want you to believe in God. But Hinduism says belief should lead to experience, and experience is what's needed for moksha. We have the classic story from the life of Swami Vivekananda, one of Hinduism's most well-known modern teachers. It illustrates the Hindu perspective of experiencing God. When Vivekananda was still a university student, he asked many of the foremost religious leaders in the Calcutta area where he lived if they had seen God. However, he never got a clear and authoritative answer from any of them till he met Sri Ramakrishna. During his second meeting with Sri Ramakrishna, he asked the great sage, "Sir, have you seen God?" Calmly, Sri Ramakrishna replied, "Yes, I see him as clearly as one sees an apple in the palm of the hand, nay, even more intently. And not only this, you can also see him." That is a great statement. This deeply impressed the young Vivekananda, who soon after accepted Sri Ramakrishna as his guru. Ramakrishna was taking the young seeker beyond belief in God and pointing toward direct experience of the divine. It is clear that the Hindu's belief in God is only a step toward the eventual experience of God. An important second point is that in Hinduism, the experience of God in the sense of complete God realization is the ultimate goal of life. It is an experience we will all eventually have when our soul has achieved sufficient spiritual maturity. It is the experience which liberates us from the need to be reborn on earth. It is to the Hindu everybody's goal. So, a question for you. What is the relationship between God realization and liberation? Some people think, in some teachings it's the same thing. In Gurudeva's teachings they're distinct. So how are they distinct? Experiencing God happens during life. Slow to come up. And liberation happens at the end of life. A great saint of North India, Anandamayi Ma, stated the goal of God realization quite beautifully. Man is a human being only so much as he aspires to self-realization. This is what human birth is meant for, to realize the One is the supreme duty of every human being. Beautiful statement. In our own Guru Parampara, Satguru Yogaswami thundered a similar Mahavakya. Tannai Adi, know thyself. His disciple Markandu Swami liked to stress that Yogaswami didn't give us 100-odd works to do, only one. Realize the self yourself, or know thyself, or find out who you are. Yogaswami said you can't find the truth in 1,000 books, or by listening to people talk. You must realize the self by yourself. And that gives us another question for you. What did Yogaswami mean by you can't find the truth in 1,000 books, or by listening to people talk? You must realize the self by yourself. Books and lectures have their benefits, but are limited in how much they can move us forward. We need to put the teachings into practice. So it's not that books and lectures are useless, it's that they provide a foundation of knowledge, but we need to put the teachings into practice to go beyond the knowledge we've acquired from the books. And what we're striving for is God realization or self-realization. Hinduism distinguishes between self with a small s, which is the ego, and self with a capital S, the soul. Self is the English rendering of the Sanskrit word Atma. In Western self-improvement terminology, self-realization refers to manifesting the full potential of your outer self. In Hinduism, the first step toward realizing the self is claiming one's identity as a spiritual being, a divine soul. The next step is realizing the soul's essence, which at the deepest level is also God's essence. So in experiencing our inmost nature, we also experience God. Though many individuals are inspired by the thought of seeing God, to most the experience seems distant and unattainable. This is because they think of jumping somehow from a 0% consciousness of God's presence to 100% awareness of God's presence. This is where one's concept of enlightenment may be a barrier, that enlightenment is an instantaneous event coming out of nowhere, totally transforming us like a flash of lightning. Fairy tale. It is more helpful to think of enlightenment as a gradual process, which involves increasing our control over our instinctive nature, directing our thoughts better, and expressing more and more of our innate divinity. Said another way, we do not need to wait for the total transforming and liberating experience of complete God realization to know God in simpler ways. This approach allows us to start seeing God now. Let's look now at 4 specific suggestions on where and how to first look for God. To experience God, do we sit on a mountaintop, enter a temple, go into a cave, or simply close our eyes? Where do we go to see God? And that's the question for you. Where do you think we should go to see God? Trying to start with kind of easy, a little more difficult places. What are some of the easy places to see God? Starting points. Perhaps the easiest place to start is to see God in great religious teachers. We feel a spiritual aura about them that is uplifting. We see a light in their eyes that we do not see in others. The mere sound of their words encourages us to live a more spiritual life. This is certainly the easiest way to see God. Another way to see God, which is a little more difficult but still not that hard to do, is to look deeply into the eyes of another person. Look beyond the personality, deeper than the intellect, and see his or her pure life energy as God. The great saying or Mahavakya that describes this experience of the divine is the Tamil word Uyir Kuyir, which means God is the life of our life. This practice also includes seeing the life energy in trees, birds, and animals, in the lowly mushroom, and in the life in the sea. God is our life. God is the life in all people. God is the life in the trees, in the birds, and in the animals. Becoming aware of this life energy is all that lives. Becoming aware of life, becoming aware of this life energy and all that lives is becoming aware of God's presence within everyone and everything. That is a beautiful bird. A few more pictures. Interesting tree. Okay, let's maybe... Okay, there we go. Beautiful verse from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad elucidates this concept. He who knows God as the life of life, the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, he indeed comprehends fully the cause of all causes. In Hindu culture, every time we greet another person with the traditional gesture of namaskar, we have the opportunity to practice looking deeply enough into his or her eyes to see God as the life of their life. In doing so, we fulfill the deepest meaning of namaskar, which means I greet God in you. So we're not just greeting the outer person, we're greeting the soul and the essence of the soul, which is God. A third place to look for God is in the Hindu temple. This one I'm sure you all listed. This is the devotional or theistic approach. The Hindu temple is not simply a place to socialize or listen to lectures on Hinduism. It's a sacred place built and maintained in such a way that we can go there to experience the divine. Invoked by ordained priests through daily puja rituals, the gods and angelic beings or devas in the inner spiritual worlds are able to bless us through the deity's enshrined image. The image is like a temporary physical body that the god utilizes during the temple ceremonies. Read that again. That's a beautiful statement from Gurudeva's teachings. The image is like a temporary physical body that the god utilizes during the temple ceremonies. Though one may have a rare mystic vision of God, the usual way we experience the gods and devas is as an uplifting, peaceful, divine energy radiating out from the image. It is easiest to feel these blessings or Shakti at the peak of the puja when the flame is held high. The God's blessings are most strongly felt on their major festival days, such as Vinayaka Chaturthi for Lord Ganesha. A fourth place, of course, is within ourselves through the practice of meditation. Meditation is internal worship, going deeply enough into ourselves to find that part of us that is identical with God. First, we experience God as peaceful and blissful feelings, later as a brilliant, clear white light, later still as a consciousness that permeates all, and finally as transcendent reality, which is timeless, formless, and spaceless. The key to deepening our experience of God is the regular practice of spiritual disciplines. And it is fair to say that no other religion contains such a vast range of spiritual practices, from such fundamental virtues as non-injury and purity, to temple worship, advanced yoga practices, and meditation. As an example of this diversity, the listing in this graphic shows 11 types of yoga from the book Yoga, Union with Reality. Even though God permeates us and the entire universe, in the beginning stages we don't see him. This is because he has intentionally hidden himself from us, allowing us freedom to grow and learn through experience and eventually strive to find the self within. This is called his veiling grace. Once we awaken to a certain stage and yearn with all our heart to see and know God, we can do so by seeing him in great religious teachers, in the eyes of other people, and by seeing him as the life of the life within all that lives. In the temple, we can experience God's peaceful energy or Shakti, and within ourselves, we can come to know God through the fine art of meditation. Through all these joyous spiritual practices of Hinduism, we can become more and more aware of God's presence within us and in the entire cosmos around us. But be patient. This is a gradual process. It takes practice, lifetimes of practice. So that's the idea, is it's a gradual process. We see just a little bit of God, then more, then more, then more. And for great sages, everything they see is God. And we have one more question from our 9-year-old. How do we realize that God is with us at all times? Well, this could be an equally long presentation as the last one, but for brevity, I am keeping it short. We do that by learning to stay centered. We can have God with us all the time if we stay centered. In other words, we don't spend a lot of time in emotional states of upset or in intellectual states of ramification. We move out of them and quickly back into being centered in our soul consciousness. So try and spend most of the day being centered. And when things throw you out of center, pull yourself back in. And our second topic is loyalty, which is the 35th character quality in our workbook. And as usual, we ask you to define it first. How would you define loyalty? The workbook gives this definition. Loyalty is having firm and constant devotion to one's family, friends, religion, and country. I express loyalty when I am faithful in all my relationships. The opposite is disloyalty. And our quotes from Gurudeva. Devotion is love of God, gods, and Guru, and dedication to family and friends. We cultivate devotion through being loyal and trustworthy. Next quote. Follow your chosen path with all your heart. Give it your full devotion, energy, and loyalty in fulfilling its goals. True seekers on the path, hoping for genuine attainment, do not wander from path to path, school to school, preceptor to preceptor, because it is known that indecision inhibits all spiritual growth. So that's an important point. It's natural to look around and explore various traditions, but just like exploring various music teachers, eventually you have to choose one and stick with that teacher and follow the exercises given to you by the teacher. Otherwise, you don't make any progress if you keep jumping around after having selected a teacher. Last quote, in fulfilling his Purusha Dharma, the husband gives his prana, love, and loyalty to his family, and he benefits the community through his service. Comparing the actions of one who is loyal to one who is disloyal. First situation, when a shy friend is being criticized by his peers, you, loyalty, speak out in his defense and work to bolster his confidence. Disloyalty, remain silent and pretend he is not your friend to gain points with the bullies. Second situation, when schoolmates make spurious statements about Hinduism, you, loyalty, remind them that you are a Hindu and counter with a more enlightened explanation. Disloyalty, forswear your tradition and family history, secretly wishing that you were not a Hindu. Third situation, when your company hits a hard patch and suffers losses, you, loyalty, stay the course, offering to take a cut in salary temporarily. Disloyalty, quickly bail in order to find a company that is not suffering hard times. Reflection, take a moment to identify a few ways in which you could improve in loyalty. And the assignment these 2 weeks, work with your friends to strengthen their sense of your commitment to them. Oh, thank you very much. Oh.